Welcome back to part 2 of Ask the King for November 11th, 2010. Shit, how time flies. So here we go. We'll finish up with the forum questions, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the Twitter questions for this week. The next forum question is, Phil, if you could have a single superpower, what would it be and why? And that's from, and I apologize because I don't know how to pronounce her name. It's either Foz or Foz. I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm going to cop out, and I'm going to go the Arthur Dent route. And if you don't know what I mean, in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is a series of 5 books written by Douglas Adams, it is a kind of like a comedy slash sci-fi adventure series. What actually happens is a normal person ends up getting pulled through the galaxy and basically going on these crazy sci-fi adventures in space, which are kind of ironic. And what ends up happening is at one point he finds out that before he dies he's going to be at this place called Stravromular Beta, and he always assumes it's some kind of a galaxy or a planet or something. And the reason he knows this is because he meets this guy called Agrajag, who apparently he has inadvertently killed several times through his travels throughout the universe. Now, if you're wondering how that could be possible, it's because the series actually goes to the future, to the past. He travels through time, and sometimes he accidentally steps on him because he's a bug. Sometimes he trips and ducks, and a bullet goes over his shoulder, and it hits this guy who's just a human in that universe. So it's pretty crazy, the story. And he finds out that eventually he's going to go to this place called Stravromular Beta, and he's accidentally going to get this guy killed again. So for the whole series, you're wondering, when is this going to happen? And then finally, in the 5th and final book of the series, he walks into a club called Stavros in New York City. And what ends up happening is he finds out that, I'm sorry, I think it's in London, not New York City. Sorry about that. And he finds out that the name of the club is Stavros Mueller's Beta Club. And so he's like, Stravromular Beta, oh shit, this is where the guy gets killed. Immediately someone fires, he gets tackled by someone, the guy behind him gets killed, and then the world ends. So for me, my favorite superpower would probably be knowing, and I know this is kind of grim and morbid to some people, but if you knew the exact date, time, and how you were going to die, you would know that you could do whatever the hell you want with the rest of your life up to that point, and you're not going to die. So think about the freedom, you know what I mean? Like, you could walk in the middle of the street and not worry about getting hit by a car, because you know if you get hit you're not going to die. You know, if there's a guy holding up a liquor store and you're in the store, you can be the hero and try to take the guy out. Why? Because you know you're not going to die. So, you know, if you knew that would be, even though it's technically not a superpower, I think just the knowledge of that could end up being a superpower, because you basically become invincible for the rest of your life. So I know that's an interesting twist on it, and it might be a little bit morbid for some people. They wouldn't want to know that, but for me, I think that's a pretty cool twist. Okay, next question. This is really not a question, but a suggestion, and this goes for everyone. I think it would be fun if Phil answers at least one trivial or comical question every episode just for fun. Something like, what brand of shampoo do you use? Did you ever have a pet? When was your first kiss? Where are you from? Assuming that Phil's not originally from Connecticut. Or what size shoes do you wear? I think that'd be interesting, and that's from the Green Hanger. Well, the Green Hanger, you know what? I think that would be interesting. It's too bad you didn't ask me a question, you just made a statement. So, anyway, moving on. Up next, the next question is from IG9, and it is, I don't know if you've already answered this, but I was wondering, what is the download and upload speed of your internet connection? And the answer to that is, it is basically the exact same speed of shit. If you were to download shit through an internet line and then try to upload and push the shit through the Ethernet cable back to the internet, that's pretty much about the same speed I have here. And that's, as I said many times, because this internet is cable internet, so it is the fastest available in the area, but because it is the same line shared by the 100 or so units in this condo, it is slow as shit. What I've actually been thinking of doing is, if this works out, which I'll know about in roughly 2 weeks' time about now, if this works out and this could be my full-time job, I might actually contact a different internet provider. So I might contact Verizon or some other company and say, listen, I already have a line in my condo, but I'd like a dedicated line separate from them, that I'll pay you separately for, can you install a different type of internet? And whether it's fiber optic, whether it's DSL, and then what I could do is I could have one line that's completely dedicated to YouTube uploading, and I could have another line that's for my web browsing, playing video games over the internet and things like that, and they won't interfere with each other. So the perfect example is today, I really want to jump on Modern Warfare 2, I'm sorry, Modern Warfare 2, what am I talking about? I really want to jump on Black Ops and play that online today, but I haven't had the chance because I've been uploading all the footage from yesterday. And if I try to play while I'm uploading, it's impossible. It's super laggy. So I'm limited in what I can do based off of what I'm uploading. So basically, if I could do that, get a second dedicated line, that would be great. Of course, that's going to be very expensive, so I need to see if I can make this work out. And if this could be my full-time focus as a job, then it would be worth the investment. So we'll see what happens. Okay, next question. This is the last forum question for this episode. Is from Claimkin07, and the question is this. Hey DSP, I was wondering if you downloaded the patch for Fallout New Vegas during your playthrough. I asked this because another guy that I watch on YouTube, and we've mentioned him before, SSOHPKC, was complaining that it screwed up part of his playthrough. Is it safe? Well, the answer, Claimkin07, is I downloaded the patch, and I don't think the patch necessarily did anything negative to my game, but let's face it, that game had so many bugs to begin with, it's not going to matter. There's going to be a strong chance that no matter what you do, something's going to fuck up, and whether it's the long loading times are going to corrupt your game, whether items will mysteriously stop working for you, like my pass to the strips mysteriously stopped working, whether quests will stop working, like they did with my Brotherhood of Steel quest, which I put a significant amount of time into just for it to never end, and I never get the payment out for it. I can't help you. The game, unfortunately, this is why I docked it a full 3/4 of a point in my Hateful Truth review, is an outstanding game, but they really, really needed to fix some of these bugs before this game came out, which they have not, and therefore it got docked 3/4 of a point. So if you're going to play New Vegas, expect epicness, expect a great game, but also be ready for bugs that might hinder your experience. Okay. I only picked 5 Twitter questions this week because a lot of them seem to be repetitive, so I figured let's just answer some of the most common ones. The first one is, what do you think of the Serious Sam franchise, and are you looking forward to Serious Sam 3? That's from Lord Angus. The answer to that is, I actually played both Serious Sam 1 and 2 on the PC. At the time, I thought they were some of the most ingenious games ever made, and the reason I say this is this. They knew what they were doing. They weren't making a game that was heavy on story. They weren't making a game that was meant to be taken seriously. It was really just off-the-wall, zany fun. It was kind of in the same vein as Duke Nukem. In fact, a lot of people said that those games were kind of the spiritual successor to Duke Nukem, because at that point, people thought that Duke Nukem Forever was not ever going to come out. And they're very basic. Basically, you are a guy who runs around with big guns blowing the shit out of everything. The enemies are absolutely hilarious, off the wall. Some of them hold their fucking heads above their bodies. Some of them are suicide bombers. Just crazy stuff. And I like the series. I did not get them on Xbox Live simply because I'd already played them on PC. I knew exactly what I was getting, and I didn't have time at the time when they were released to really play through them again, which is a shame. But if Serious Sam 3 comes out, it's definitely something I would consider buying. But again, it's not a game really to be taken seriously. Most people, when they played those games, they did the online co-op with someone else, which allowed you to basically have unlimited lives, unlimited continues, and you just played through the game and had fun with it. And that's ideally what the game's about, having fun with it. Not worrying about that the graphics aren't the best, that the sound effects aren't the best, that the gameplay isn't the best. It's just about having silly fun. So, yeah, when Serious Sam 3 comes out, it's something I'll consider playing. I liked the first 2 games. I thought they were hilarious. The next question. Out of all the game consoles that you ever owned, which ones were your favorite and your least favorite, and why? And that is from Una Dixon. Una Dixon, okay? Okay, great question. My favorite consoles. My favorite consoles, I would have to say, content-wise, my favorite console was the Super NES. That console, when it came out, had an outstanding launch library, ended up, over time, definitely having a better library than the Sega Genesis did. And that was because Nintendo was able to secure some really great exclusives, like the Final Fantasy series, obviously the Super Mario series. Star Fox, Mario Kart, F-Zero, the Zeldas. I mean, there were so many great games for the Super Nintendo. And ideally, at that point, yes, the Super Nintendo did come out second, meaning it came out after the Genesis, but it did have better graphics. It really did. And I have to say that I really did enjoy the Super Nintendo better than the Genesis. I did have both, but I did enjoy the Super Nintendo better. Plus, it was one of the first systems where really you could save your game. Yeah, I know that other games previously you could save your game on Nintendo, but it wasn't like a commonplace thing. A lot of those games were still using passwords and things. The Super Nintendo was really the first system to adopt a full-fledged save system, so you didn't have to enter passwords in to continue your game. And the control, too, I really did. I love the Super NES control pad. I think it was probably one of the best pads ever created. I mean, you could play Street Fighter on the damn thing. You could play a Mario game on the thing. It was really outstanding, the controls for the time. So, content-wise, I have to say Super Nintendo was my favorite system. Now, if you're talking just technological advances, I have to say that the Sega Dreamcast was actually the best system overall. And the reason I say that, it was way ahead of its time, and I know you've heard that before, but the reason people say that is built-in dial-up internet. So, not so much in the United States because it really wasn't supported that much, but if you lived in Japan, this was the first system you could play people over the internet on, and that was amazing. The graphics for the time were better than anything else out there. For a CD-based system, it actually loaded significantly faster than most of the other CD-based systems that were out at the time, like the PlayStation 1, the Sega CD, the Sega Saturn, I'm sorry, CD was already outdated by that point, and things like that. So really it was one of the few systems that really, it was like, it perfected the technology of the time, it added new technology, and it even had this cool little VMU. Now at the time, a lot of people were in love with this thing called the Tamagotchi, which was this little virtual pet per se, that you could raise it was a little LCD screen. It was like a mini Game Boy almost. And you would raise this pet, feed it during the day. It would be like having a pet. And, you know, if you raised it, it would grow and become a healthy thing. And people were like, wow, this is pretty neat. It's different. Well, they took that concept, and every memory card for the Sega Dreamcast was like a Tamagotchi, where you could plug it into the Dreamcast. It had an LCD screen. On some games, it actually gave you stats for the game that you were playing. Other games, it would have additional content. So like for Sonic Adventure, which was the first 3D Sonic game, it actually had a virtual pet growing on it, and if you did things with it, it would actually help you in the game. So yeah, it really was ahead of its time, and it's a shame that unfortunately what ended up happening was after only a couple of years of really being supported, that Sega pretty much went defunct in the console market and never really followed up on it. Because honestly, the Dreamcast at that time was the absolute best system for fighting games. It had the best ports of your favorite fighting games like, excuse me, Capcom vs. SNK 2, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. In fact, the Dreamcast version of Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is still today, a decade later, accepted as the definitive console port, and everyone feels that everything else is far inferior to it. So, just saying that you could make fighting games that were arcade perfect or near arcade perfect for it for the first time was enough to sell that system. And that's really my major experience with the system, was that everyone had it for fighting games. And it was a shame because about the mid to late 2000s, all of them started finally frying out, which happens, unfortunately, with custom joysticks. A lot of the time what would happen is there would be some problem with the wattage of the electricity, and it would zap your console ports, and all of a sudden no controllers would work for your system. And that started happening. And since then, there's very few Dreamcasts left. A lot of people are like hoarding them. A lot of people are saving them. But you'll find, if you try to look for one on like eBay, they're expensive as shit. So yeah, that system really was ahead of its time. Probably the best hardware-wise and technology-wise, the best console ever for its time. Now, if you want me to talk about what my least favorite console was, don't get me wrong, this is not because of the games. I thought the game lineup for this system was outstanding, but the hardware was absolute shit. I'm talking about the PlayStation 1 Model 1. The PlayStation 1 Model 1 was a sack of fucking dicks, alright? It didn't work. After playing it for like 3 hours, the system would begin to overheat, in which case it wouldn't even load the games. So think about this. You're into Resident Evil 1, you're really getting into it, and the fucking game starts skipping, locking up, and it won't load. And it's really fucking frustrating. And people tried all kinds of solutions. They tried taking the system and putting it, how can I say, you know, this is supposed to be your PlayStation 1. They tried standing it up on its side. They tried slapping it. They tried removing the CD lid and taping shit to it and tricking it, and nothing really worked. And it was really frustrating for everyone, just because it was, again, it was a system everyone wanted to play. The best graphics were on that system for the time. All the new 3D games were coming out for it. And just to have games that were overheating, frying, you know, not being able to be played for extended amounts of time, people really got frustrated with that system. Now, over time, they fixed the problem. In fact, there were very few PlayStation 2s that ever had that problem. And now, as you know, with the PlayStation 3, that's a thing of the past. It's not a problem at all anymore. But being that that was really supposed to be the next generation of consoles, it had that kind of hardware problems. It was really frustrating for everyone. And the other thing that really pissed everyone off about the PS1 were the loading times. I mean, this was supposed to be the next generation. We were convinced that we were getting better games because they were on CDs, yet these games were taking up to 10 times longer to load than a cartridge, and we were like, sorry, we don't see the benefit at that time. Now today, that's a totally different, but back then, it was a concern. Okay, a couple more questions left here. The next one is, have you ever been recognized in the street by a fan? And that's from Sammy Ekins. In the street, per se, absolutely not. No, I've never been walking around, you know, where I live here and been, hey, are you DSP or Dark Side Phil? No, that's not happened. But I've gone to some events where I've been recognized. Anytime I go to a video game tournament, yes, people recognize me immediately. When I went to the New York Comic Convention, a bunch of people caught me, and I said, what's up to them? You know, I'm not a dick, or I'm going to ignore people or walk by or anything. So yeah, people do recognize me when I'm at events that are catered towards video games. Because obviously that's where there would be people who would be the kind of people who follow me on YouTube. So the only other people who really have ever recognized me are obviously people who I used to work with at my old job. A lot of them knew that I did this stuff on YouTube, and that was pretty much the extent of it. So no, there's no giant name recognition right now or anything like that. I don't walk down the street and everyone's like, hey, you're DSP. But at the same time, I really doubt that people would say, hey, aren't you Ray William Johnson or Nigga Higo or, you know, whoever the hell they are. I'm sure they don't get that either. Two more questions, and then we're all set for this edition of Ask the King. The next one is, Phil. This is funny. Phil, you realize there's a decoy in Black Ops, right? You got pwned by it a lot and said it was a bug. Lol. And that's from Disaster 096. Now, if you don't know what he's talking about, the series of videos that I just put up, now I don't know when you're watching this video, but I just put up a series of videos. It was my first online experience with Call of Duty Black Ops. I was getting frustrated like crazy because my mini-map kept showing me gunfire, and I would go to that area and there's no one fucking there. And I'm like, what is wrong with this game? It's bugged out. Well, after I played yesterday, I actually did do a little bit of research, and I found out, if you can believe it, and I kind of disagree with this because this is really stupid, there is a decoy, which basically is some kind of an attachment or something that you can use, a perk, that simulates virtual gunfire and tricks people into going to that area of the map. When in any freaking war ever did someone have an object that they would throw that would simulate gunfire? I mean, sure, you throw a rock, oh no, I heard something moving, and you go over there. But you wouldn't hear someone going, oh shit, I hear it, and you head over there and then there's nothing there. That's bullshit. So I kind of think that's really stupid, and that is a dumb thing to have in the game, but now that I know it's there, at least I won't get as frustrated as I did yesterday. Yesterday, again, it was my first time playing the game. I'm just learning. I didn't know about any of the unlocks or anything like that. I'm sure there's going to be even zanier stuff that I don't know about. So yeah, I kind of have egg on my face. I'm a little bit embarrassed about that, but there's really nothing I can do. I got fooled. I'm stupid. Alright, the final question. This was an extremely common question, so I wanted to answer it. And this will finish us off for this week. This one's from Yakuza98, and he says, Phil, will you be able to upload the rest of the videos from the DLC of Red Dead Redemption? Because many viewers want to see the end of the Undead Nightmare, and it seems like it just abruptly ended. I want to hang my head in shame on this one, because I incorrectly assumed, once again, that people would read. Because if you look at the last video that I have on Red Dead DSP from the Undead Nightmare DLC, you'll see that in the video description, it actually fully explains why the series ends there, but I guess no one reads. The bottom line is this: the game ends. It's not like regular Red Dead Redemption where there's a secret mission and the story continues. The game actually ends right there once you... Well, I don't want to spoil it, but basically that last video part is the end of Red Dead Redemption. Now, you can go on and do other stuff. You can do the optional missions and things like that, but for the most part, the campaign is over once you get to that part. So, it is over. The story's over. It ends there. There's no more story missions. And I apologize for anyone who was confused about that, but I only knew it because John and I immediately looked it up on the internet and found out, nope, that's the end. And so it is a little annoying, though, that, I did put up a description fully explaining that so everyone would know, and no one reads. So I think the moral of the story this week is do some research before you ask questions, because usually the answers are out there. Whether you watch a previous DSP inbox vid, whether you read the description of the video you have a question on, whether you go to the forums and you check it out, chances are if you have a question, it's probably been answered already, or if it's a common question, something that seems like common sense, like, Phil, why don't you trade in your game? Or why don't you sell games on eBay? Which I've talked about before. There's a reason for it. And one other thing that I do want to say is I am a little disappointed because I did kind of listen to fan feedback. I did put up 2 games for auction this past week, which if you've been following along were the Alan Wake Collector's Edition and Star Wars The Force Unleashed Collector's Edition. Well, it's now official. The person who won both of those auctions at the very last minute, first of all, he did have positive feedback. He did have history of voting and paying for things he bid on eBay. So there was really nothing that John and I could do to identify that he was going to be an asshole. But he basically sent John a message, oh, DSP's a scrub, fuck you, I'm not paying. So he's a troll, and it's really disappointing that we spent a week now, pushing this, trying to get people to bid on it, and then last thing you know, a troll comes at the last minute and fucks everything up for everyone. The good news is we did send messages to the second place winners, so hopefully they'll be taking advantage of that, and they'll be able to get those games. If not, we're probably going to have to put them back up for auction and see what happens, but it is a little disappointing that you have people like that, and that's why we kind of held off from doing stuff on eBay, and that's why I have been trading stuff into GameStop previously up to now. But what can you do? We're basically going to get that guy banned from eBay. We already have all the information we need. We have the proof. He's pretty screwed. In fact, it's already on his account that he already didn't pay for 2 other items outside of the ones that he bid on for me. So he's done this to other people before too. We're going to get him banned from eBay. So fuck that guy. Pizza Power Jack, you're a cocksucker. But besides that, there are 2 other auctions up there. One for Fable 3 Collector's Edition and also one for GoldenEye Collector's Edition. The links can be found in the previous video that I made about that on the TKOHHD, so look for it. It's about auctions, and we'll go from there. So anyway, that's it for this episode of Ask the King. Remember, if you have a question, go to thekingofhate.com, register on the forums. I'm going to go make a new thread right now for the next episode. Please respond to that thread and push your question there. If you put up a new thread, it's going to get deleted. I'm not going to read it. And then remember, at the last minute, just like I did today, there will be Twitter questions that I'll answer at the last minute too. So that's it for this episode of Ask the King. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you later.